1883. A letter arrives. Don Bosco reads, "Father Bosco, we need you. We need your sons in Calcutta." The letter was written by Monsignor Goethals, the Archbishop of Calcutta. Don Bosco's reply comes 3 months later, on February 23rd, 1884.
I very much regret not being able to send my missionaries, due to a lack of available personnel. But as soon as we are in a position to help you, we will do so with great pleasure.
And in those words, a promise was made. A promise to come. A promise to serve. A promise to reach the lost. 2 years later, in 1886, Don Bosco has a vision. A dream unlike any other. In it, a shepherd girl appears, the same figure from his most powerful visions. And she asks him to draw a line that stretches from Santiago in Chile, across continents, across oceans, through Africa, through India, cutting across the world itself. And on that line, there is a city, Calcutta.
January 1922. 11 weary missionaries step off a train at Calcutta station. They're not staying. They're on their way to Shillong. But in those moments, walking through the bustling platforms, they become the first Salesians to touch the soil of this city, the city of Don Bosco's vision. 3 years later, on November 11th, 1925, a date forever etched in Salesian memory, it happened. 3 priests and a brother, led by Father Paul Bernardi, officially claimed the Catholic Orphan Press, their humble beginning, their first home. They had no master plan, no 5-year strategy. They just had the legacy of Don Bosco. Give me souls, take away the rest. Just faith, just courage. Led by Father Louis Matthias, they moved with just 2 words, dare and hope. With their bare hands and Salesian hearts, they took charge. A printing press, a cathedral to serve, a scattered flock of Anglo-Indian Catholics to care for.
But the Salesians were not content to stop at one location. Their founder's dream was too vast. The needs were too great. In 1928, they claimed the Shrine of Our Lady of Happy Voyage at Bandel, a 330-year-old sanctuary, a place that had welcomed pilgrims since the Portuguese first set foot on Indian shores. Now, it became a beacon for Salesian vocations. Then came Lilua, Don Bosco Technical School, blessed in 1937. It was more than a school. It was a revolution. Professional education for the poor, for the forgotten, for those whom society had written off. Bishop Ferdinand Perrier of Calcutta watched and believed. He saw in the Salesians what Don Bosco himself had prophesied, the possibility of transformation through education, through care, through love. In 1958, Don Bosco Park Circus rose from the earth. Built with money won in the Irish sweepstakes, a stroke of providence, the Salesians called it. Not by chance, by design, by faith.
In 1928, the Salesians made a bold decision. They accepted the Diocese of Krishnagar, a vast, impoverished, challenging territory. This was not just Calcutta anymore. The diocese spread across 5 districts: Nadia, Murshidabad, Jessore, Khulna, and Faridpur. Thousands of Catholics are scattered across villages. In Jessore and Khulna, the Salesians opened schools and training centres. In Voborpara and Shimulia, thriving parishes flourished. A catechist training school rose in Jessore in 1937. These were not distant outposts. These were living, breathing communities, the crown jewels of Salesian work in Bengal.
And then came sorrow. Partition in 1947. 2/3 of their flock was torn away as Bengal was divided. The border fell like a knife. Jessore, Khulna, Faridpur, the most thriving communities, the ones that had known 20 years of Salesian care, suddenly lay across an international frontier, now in East Pakistan. By 1952, visa restrictions and the impossible politics of a new nation made even visits impossible. The Salesians withdrew, their hearts still tethered to those abandoned communities. 66 years of silence would follow.
Yet what remained in India became a testimony to resilience. By the 1970s, when Bishop Matthew Baroy, the first Bengali Salesian bishop, took the reins, Krishnagar had transformed. 73 mission stations, hospitals, schools, homes for the aged, a sanctuary for refugees during the Bangladesh War, a testament to how faith moves mountains. And then, the Santals. In 1956, a priest named Father John Topno heard the call. In the interiors of Murshidabad, among the tribal communities, among those whom even the church had forgotten, the Salesians found their truest calling.
Today, centers at Azimganj, Badhampur, Polsonda Mor, Boro Pahari, Joypur in Birbhum, Monigram, Purnia, Katihar, each a lighthouse in the darkness.
But the dream did not end at Bengal's shore. In 1939, Father Antonio Alessi and his companions, after a quiet farewell at Don Bosco School, Lilua, sailed across the Bay of Bengal toward Rangoon. In Mandalay, the school, orphanage, and parish, nurtured by Father Leo Lafont until then, became the first Salesian foothold in Myanmar, a seed awaiting new guardians. Then came the storm. World War II swept across Burma. Independence followed, and with it, control tightened. Schools were nationalized. Missionaries were forced to leave. Classrooms fell silent. But the dream was no longer foreign. Local Salesians stepped forward, and what was planted in faith endured.
A fire. On Good Friday, 1936, a fire consumed the Salesian house in Shillong. In moments, dozens of young men were homeless. But in tragedy, Providence moved. They were given refuge in the Darjeeling Hills, and there, among the Nepali-speaking people, among the slopes of the eastern Himalayas, a new mission began. Salesian College Sonata became the crucible where generations of priests were formed. For 50 years, Sonata stood as a fortress of faith and learning. And then, in the 1990s, that college remembered its first calling, to serve the people around it, to take the good news beyond the seminary walls. Don Bosco Sikkim, Don Bosco Mirik, Don Bosco Kalimpong. Each center a response to the same ancient calling, to reach the peripheries, to embrace the abandoned, to fulfill a saint's 2-century-old vision. But the mountains needed a gateway. In 1959, a priest's motorcycle broke down on the Sevok Road. The garage owner had land to sell. The Salesians bought the land, built a house, lost it to the military in 1962, started again. In 1973, Father Paul Taverna opened a school with 7 boys and 1 classroom. Today, a school, a parish, a shrine, an extension campus of Salesian College, a night school for the poor. From barren land, a complete Salesian presence, where the plains meet the Himalayas. In 1992, Father George Alakulam arrived in Dharan, Nepal. A pioneer, almost alone, with a handful of faithful and a dream. Today, 20 Salesians serve in Nepal. Schools, parishes, vocational centers. All growing, all thriving. All proof that miracles don't end in ancient time.
But there was another land that the Salesian heart was called to. A land where seeds had been sown 90 years earlier. A land separated by partition, but never truly abandoned. In 2009, 66 years after leaving, the doors opened again. What was now the independent nation of Bangladesh, the Salesians returned to complete an unfinished story. Today, 3 communities, 3 dioceses. U Trail in Mymensingh, Lokikul and Konjanpur in Rajshahi, Mosher in Dhaka. From refugee camps to bustling cities, from villages to the capital itself, the Salesians work as signs and bearers of God's love. Not with grand infrastructure, not with elaborate plans, but with the same courage, the same faithfulness, the same humble love that had characterized their work 90 years earlier.
From Father Paul Bernardi's first uncertain steps at the Catholic Orphan Press to the vibrant missions of Nepal and renewed love in Bangladesh today. From the Anglo-Indian Catholics of Calcutta to the Santals of the interior. From classrooms to clinics. From printing presses to hope-filled presences. Don Bosco never made it to Calcutta in his lifetime, but his dream arrived. It took root. It grew. It transformed into happy lives.
100 years later, in schools and parishes across eastern India, Nepal, and Bangladesh, that dream lives on. In the laughter of children and the celebrations of young people, in the faith of believers gathering, in the courage of Salesian brothers, priests, sisters, past pupils, cooperators, and all members of the Salesian family serving at the peripheries.
Dare and hope, 2 words that became the motto of the early missionaries. A mission that does not age, a dream that does not die. The voice of Don Bosco that echoes in centuries. Give me souls, take away the rest.
As the Salesian Province of Calcutta celebrates its centenary, it does not rest on yesterday's victories. It dares again. It hopes again. Because somewhere, in a village yet untouched, in a child yet unmet, in a young heart yet unhealed, Don Bosco's dream continues.